All right, welcome to the second video for our module on digestion. So far, we've talked about, we basically did an overview of the digestive system, all of the structures that are in the digestive system and its accessory organs. And we talked about kind of the first half of the process for digestion. So basically, as food enters your mouth and gets to the stomach and is then ready to leave and go into the small intestine. So that's where we're going to pick up in this video, and we're going to begin with discussing the small intestine and what happens in the small intestine in terms of digestion. Okay, so the small intestine is where a lot of digestion actually happens. The intestine has to neutralize acids that come from the stomach. Digestive enzymes will be added to the chyme that comes from the stomach, and bile will be added from the liver to that mixture as well. And proteins will be broken down, carbohydrates and lipids all will be broken down to their monomers. Remember, their monomers are their individual components, right? So like carbohydrates are monosaccharides, proteins are amino acids, right? And so those are what's going to be absorbed by the digestive system. Okay? And 90% of the food is absorbed in the small intestine, with the remaining 10% being absorbed in the large intestine. Okay? Now, the small intestine has a really large surface area. Right? Remember, surface area is important for diffusion. The higher your surface area to volume ratio is, the more efficient you're going to be at moving molecules across your surfaces. Okay? The small intestine, not only does it have a large surface area, but it also is divided into three different regions. The first region, right after the stomach, is the duodenum. Then you have the jejunum and the ileum. The duodenum is where most of the digestion occurs, and then absorption really occurs in the last 2/3 of the small intestine. The mucosa, so that inner lining in the small intestine, is not smooth. It actually has a lot of folds as it kind of runs throughout the interior lining of the small intestine. And these folds help to increase the surface area and to facilitate a lot of absorption. And so these large folds are what's known as, so these large folds have villi that are present on the large folds. And these are microscopic projections that have blood and lacteal capillaries. So basically the capillaries run into those projections so that they can absorb the nutrients and the molecules that are being digested. And then, so not only does the small intestine have large folds that hold villi, but the villi also have microvilli, which are even more folds on the outer layer of the epithelial cells that make up the villi. So it's basically folds upon folds that help to increase the surface area. Right, so here we have an image of this. So here we have the gastrointestinal tract, and you can see these large folds, right, in the mucosa. And so if we zoom into a section, right, this is what that would look like. Right, so one of these folds would have these villi on it. So here you can see the folds in the mucosa and the villi, the little projections that's coming off of that mucosa. Okay, and then if we zoom into one fold, that finger-like projection, this is what it looks like. So that lacteal and the blood and the capillaries run through there. So lacteal is like your part of your lymphatic system, and it picks up the nutrients and liquid water that's being absorbed. And then if you zoom into one cell on that villi, they have tiny finger-like projections on the ends of those cells as well. This is known as microvilli. And so you have folds upon folds upon folds that really increase the surface area to really help with digestion, to make sure that you're absorbing as much as you can whenever that food is passing through your digestive system. And so there are a couple of accessory organs that release substances into the small intestine to help with the process of digestion. The first of those that we're going to look at is the pancreas. The pancreas has exocrine functions. Okay, so remember the exocrine glands that we talked about. And it secretes digestive enzymes and sodium bicarbonate. So bicarbonate is there to neutralize the stomach acids. And then some digestive enzymes that it releases are proteases, lipases, and pancreatic amylase. So that amylase digests starch. So you have a salivary amylase and a pancreatic amylase there to digest that starchy material. Proteases digest different kind of proteins, and then lipases are digesting lipids. Okay, so help breaking those lipids down. Okay, so here are a summary table from your book. It's kind of showing the enzyme, the source, where it's active, and then what it digests, and then the products that it leads to. So, for example, pancreatic amylase will break down polysaccharides and turn them into disaccharides, right? Whereas trypsin comes from the pancreas. It breaks down proteins into their peptides, okay? And so this, you don't have to memorize these, but this is just there to show you kind of what digestive enzymes do what. Now, the other accessory organs are the liver and the gallbladder. The liver makes the bile, which helps to emulsify lipids. And emulsifying lipids is like the bile droplets, the bile salts, will surround the lipid and kind of emulsify and break down that lipid globule into smaller parts. And then that allows that lipid to be taken up by the cells and absorbed into the body. And the liver is associated with the hepatic portal system. And we'll look at a figure of this. But it basically drains blood from the digestive tract to the liver. Okay? And then the liver also has some metabolic functions where it has storage, synthesis of products, and then chemical processing of different products. The gallbladder is important because it helps to concentrate and store the bile that can then be released into the small intestine. Now, we can live without our gallbladder because the liver can produce bile and secrete it directly to the small intestine, but your bile concentration is going to go down, and you might not be able to eat certain foods that have a lot of fats in them, like gravies, those sorts of things, because you won't have enough concentrated bile to actually help break down those foods. You might get constipated, that sort of stuff, because your digestive system won't function properly with different foods. So here's an image showing those accessory organs in relation to the stomach and the duodenum. So you have your liver, you have your gallbladder, and then those have a common bile duct that goes into the small intestine. And then you have your pancreas that secretes the enzymes bicarbonate into the duodenum via different ducts. Okay. And then we also mentioned the hepatic portal system that drains blood from the digestive system. And so this is a mock-up figure of the hepatic portal system. So it's basically vessels that will take blood from the small intestine, the large intestine, the pancreas, the spleen, the stomach, the liver, and run it through the liver. So all of that's ran through the liver and then put back through the inferior vena cava, right? The liver helps to kind of like clean up that material. So after the digestive material has left the small intestine and most of the food and water has been absorbed, the large intestine will then absorb any remaining nutrients and water, and then it stores the waste until it's time to eliminate it. And the structures of the large intestine include the colon, the cecum, and the appendix. The colon can be divided into four regions. You have the ascending colon, the transverse colon, the descending colon, and the sigmoid colon. And then after the sigmoid colon, you have your rectum and anus, which is where the waste is excreted. So here's a figure of the large intestine. So the small intestine would be in this space on the inside here. So the small intestine would exit into the cecum, which is also where that appendix is located. And then you go to the ascending colon, the transverse colon, the descending colon, and then this part of the colon that has this little twist here is known as the sigmoid colon. This area is your rectum, and then the opening is the anal canal and the anus. Okay. All right, and so that's really it for the second half of the digestion process. You know, the small intestine does a lot of the absorption, a lot of the breaking down. The large intestine is there to get any kind of remaining material that wasn't absorbed and then to store and eliminate those wastes. Okay. And so that's it for the second video where we kind of finish the food pathway. What we're going to look at in the third video is how exactly the nutrients are absorbed, how they go from the digestive system into the body and in what form. And then we'll briefly talk about some diseases that can and do affect our digestive system. And so with that, we'll see you in the next video.